Okay, so good afternoon from Rome and good morning, good evening to all of you connecting from other parts of the world. And welcome to this e-panel on data quality in agriculture and food security in the time of COVID-19. My name is Renata Mirulla. I am the facilitator of the community of practice EvalForward, a community of practice on evaluation for agriculture, food security and rural development, supported jointly by FAO, IFAD and WFP. We are organizing this event here today jointly with AVANTI. AVANTI stands for Advancing Knowledge for Agriculture Impact, and it's an IFAD-funded initiative supported and implemented by ITAD and Helvetas that engages ministries of agriculture on assessing their capacities for results-based management in agriculture. So we're joining forces today, as we did also last time for an e-panel on leadership for results-based management in agriculture, and we'll do also other initiatives in this field. In particular, today we are looking into data, quality of data from the point of view of data producers, but we are planning in September to do another part of this kind of dialogue, looking more in depth into users of data, so decision makers and policy makers. So stay tuned with us, with Avanti and EvalForward, because we are planning more events on this. And also, we are planning also to widen a bit our audience by doing events also in French and in Spanish. So let me give you some technical tips before starting. I suppose many of you join many of these kind of meetings, so we all know by now what to do in this kind of setup, but please use for your questions, please use the Q&A box that you'll find on the bottom of your screen. You can use the chat for comments or other type of inputs, but use the Q&A please for any question you may have. If you have technical problems, one option could be to close your browser and re-enter the meeting, or contact our technical support, Emmy. She's here with us today, and she will help you in any problem you may have. You can contact her through the chat box using the Avanti contact, or by email, the email you see on the screen. So this is a knowledge sharing event, so we will record. We are already recording the event, and we'll share with all of you the presentations and the recording and any follow-up that we may have after this meeting. So the facilitation team, I'm here with Ethel Sibanda from Avanti. She works at ITAD and she's part of the Avanti team, and Kai Schrader from Helvetas and also part of the Avanti team. But most importantly, our e-panelists, our distinguished guests today, Team Jackie, I hope I pronounced the name correctly. He's a research fellow at the Tegemeo Institute of Agriculture Policy and Development at the Egerton University in Kenya. He's also a member of EvalForward, and he recently raised a discussion on data quality in agriculture, which you can see on the EvalForward website. So he facilitated this discussion, and he's here today also for us to continue this conversation. Armand Zoa, he's the head of the monitoring unit at the Ministry of Agriculture and Rural Development in Cameroon. He is part of the Avanti, is the focal point for the Avanti project in Cameroon. And we have Joas Tukizimana from the Republic of Rwanda. He's a monitoring and evaluation specialist at the Ministry of Agriculture and Animal Resources. He's also a focal point for the Avanti initiative. So before we start, we wanted to break the ice and see where our audience is connecting from. So please, can you let us know where are you based today? Where are you connecting from today? if you could fill in this poll that Emmy has put online, and so we can see where you're joining us from. Emmy, when you're ready, you can display the results. Okay, so we see that most of us today are from Europe, Central Asia, North Africa, Near East, but also we have a good representation from Africa. This is the focus also of our panel today, because our speakers are all from the Africa region, but we are happy to see that there are also representatives and participants from Latin America. So we are covering, and not from Asia Pacific, but also because perhaps the time zone is not ideal for our colleagues in Asia. I'll leave it now to Tim. He will set a bit the stage of this discussion today. He will give a keynote presentation on improving agriculture data quality in the COVID pandemic. Tim, I'll hand over to you, and please unmute yourself for your keynote. Thank you for being with us today.
Thank you, Renata. Good morning and good afternoon, depending on where you're joining us from. I will talk a little bit about ag data, where we were, and the challenges we've seen facing during the COVID pandemic, and how we can continue sharing experiences to ensure that we continue improving both the quantity and the quality of data for ag data in the region. So my presentation has a bit of bias, focusing on the region, and specifically I have examples based on Kenya that we can share, both what we've done and what other institutions in the country have also been doing. So next slide, please. So we start by, of course, just reminding ourselves why ag transformation data is important, especially in the context of ag transformation. Most of the countries in the region, similar to other developing countries, are basically agricultural based in their economies. And this data is important to track how these countries are performing in terms of ag transformation, as well as how they are linking with other sectors, importantly manufacturing, trade, health, as we seek to grow the sector in terms of the value added, but then maintaining the contributions that will spur the economies for these other countries. So the data that we collect in the ag sector is important. This is not just, and this is across the types of data that we collect, both data on production, data on prices, labor, to just make sure that, again, we are informing these other sectors on some of the key decisions and incentives that must be provided for the economies. As you all know, we have also a number of strategic documents and strategies that we must continue to track. This includes the Sustainable Development Goals. For the Africa continent, we have the AU Agenda. And then we also have a number of country-specific development strategies. For example, in Kenya, we have Vision 2030, and I'm sure you must have seen almost a number of countries in Africa have a strategic vision, either 2020, 2030, 2040, or 2050. For most of the countries within the region. So we must continue to track what is happening, and then inform the policies as to how the progress we are making and the changes that we need to make in terms of trying to improve the impact that we can see from the development strategies that are being rolled out and being implemented. Next slide. So where were we before COVID? So we take notice that in region, sub-Saharan Africa, we lag behind other regions, especially in terms of availability of credible, reliable, and quality ag data. The current scenario for most African countries is that we don't have a single source of data, of comprehensive data, especially for ag and nutrition. When you compare, for example, countries in Asia or Latin America, you have statistical yearbooks based on regular panels of data that has been implemented. In Africa, we have now a number of countries that have been doing the LSMS, but for example, we have countries, including Kenya, where we don't have this comprehensive data set. Then what ends up happening is that then you have numerous data collectors. So Tegemeo Institute is one of the data collectors in Kenya. And then, of course, when you have the numerous data collectors, people tend to act independently. And of course, the objectives and methodology used varies. And this makes it a problem, especially where you're trying to interpolate the data so that it can actually address a wider set of questions. But then the other problem is that it also brings us the aspect of coordination and how the statistical bodies are able to coordinate the numerous data generators. And because coordination has actually been poor, then you find that the reliability of that data comes into question, because you have either a few people whose data is reliable, but then now it only addresses as a limited scope or addresses a limited context. And then key challenge is that unlike where we have uniform methodologies, we cannot be able to compare data. So in this case, for example, if we are talking about the EAC region or the COMESA region, then you don't have a data set that kind of covers all the countries involved. And then if you want to do that, then you have to roll out that rather than use the already existing data set. Next slide. So because of this, we've had in recent years, especially in the last 3 years, we've seen massive investments to try and improve the quality, availability, and credibility of ag data. We have we've seen some interventions like the GODAN, the Global Open Data for Ag and Nutrition. We've also seen the CGIAR Big Data Platform. And also, we also have investments. For example, the Africa Development Bank has been rolling out an investment for member states to harmonize the way ag data is collected. And the key investment done by the bank has been to harmonize the methodologies that are used in collecting data, so that at the end of the day, although different countries are able to collect data independently, the data can actually be used together. And what that has heightened is that there is more elevation on the need for evidence-based decision making. But then this has to be supported by improving the availability and utilization of data. And then what we've seen, especially after the COVID broke out, is that there is huge demand actually for data to inform the decisions that are being made, to inform, for example, the containment strategies, the effect it's having on people. But then, of course, with the absence of these pre-existing data sets, that makes us worry, because we know that if they end up now making decisions based on data that is not credible, again, it kind of rolls back the gains that we've made to get policymakers to really appreciate data and to provide resources for investing in data collection and management infrastructure that we've seen, for example, in different countries, including Kenya. Next slide. So what happened after COVID is that similar to what we've gone through, and also a number of countries and also sectors, there was a huge disruption of collection of data. For example, in the case of Kenya, the lockdown restrictions were implemented from April. So from April means that we can no longer go out and have face-to-face interactions with respondents. But even before that, as soon as the first case was reported in March, there was heightened security, where people now were a bit worried about whether we can continue making movements. And what we saw is that at least from mid-March, the order or the encouragement for people to stay at home and only make essential travel, many people are adhering to that. So that means that the collection of most of the ag data, including production, consumption, prices, trade and market access, and also nutrition, at that particular point was constrained. And for example, in one of the key questions we were trying to answer was that when the containment measures were, for example, rolled out in Kenya in early April, one of the key immediate effects on the agriculture data was that we saw that there was a very clear market constraint, in the sense that the curfew restrictions meant that food could no longer be traveled during the night. But then some people were able to make that, but then some people were actually discouraged. But then in terms of the effect that had for the first 2 weeks before there was clarification, nobody knows, for example, the kind of post-harvest losses that were incurred at that particular point. And it's difficult because we cannot go out and collect that data. So we've seen that from March till now, decisions have been made, containment measures, looking at the effects. We had instances where markets were closed and then reopened again. But then what was informing these decisions? So we realized that in many cases, people just relied on a case study or a media, when the media highlighted a specific case, but it doesn't necessarily mean that you could generalize those findings to warrant that decision being made. So the key thing is that we have to see how we can continue ensuring the quality of data that is coming in. How do we then, even as we are working remotely, try to collect useful data that can actually inform policy? And then how can we ensure that even where we are seeing specific case studies, we can actually improve the quality of analysis and the inference that we can make to ensure that we have correct policy prescriptions? And then how do we also collaborate with other people? Because now more than ever, we actually need to work together as different institutions and different evaluators from different regions. We must come together and share these experiences so that we can actually make sure that we continue strengthening the evidence-based policy making. Next slide. So some of the key emerging innovations, I think we are happy to see that we are now, a lot of institutions, especially those that had good budgets, that we've moved towards remote data collection. For example, the use of satellite data. I mean, this is important because we know that even before, and even as we are moving towards the big data, the use of satellite imagery was going to be, the next horizon of kind of, in terms of collecting ag data. And we've seen this, for example, in the case of Kenya. Satellite data has been very useful, for example, even in tracking locust movement. As you all know, the Horn of Africa had one of the largest, locust invasion. Still, the control measures are still going on, and we've seen a lot of use of satellite imagery to try and also map out the affected areas. We've seen a lot of innovations on mobile phone, especially with CATI. This is computer-aided telephone interviews. And this has actually really helped. And for example, in case of Tegemeo, we've been able to undertake surveys or mobile phone surveys, building on existing data sets. Of course, one of the key things or the risks is that if you don't have existing data set, it's very difficult to actually undertake a phone survey because one, you need to go out and get mobile phone information from respondents. How do you make sure then that your sampling is representative? Those are key questions that you have to ask. And then the other thing, of course, is that for mobile phones, the surveys tend to be very short. Our surveys have been between 20 to 30 minutes, just to make sure that, again, we don't fatigue. And also from experience from other people who have been doing this in the country, again, we've realized that as the longer the phone call becomes, then the chances that the data quality suffers is very, very high. We've seen innovations. I think the World Bank has partnered with our government to collect data, for example, to try and track the impact of COVID. And actually they built this on a household survey, a nationwide household survey that was done in 2015, 2016. So mobile phone surveys have been a stopgap, especially to try and collect information. And also the good thing is that it also means that you have to collect precise information. So sometimes as data collectors, we tend to collect a little bit more, And then this becomes very useful for research. But for mobile phone, it has to be very, very precise, because every minute that you're engaging the respondent really counts. We've also seen innovations through use of mobile SMS surveys. Again, SMS surveys, this is using the USSD codes where you shoot an SMS, you broadcast within a specific area, and then people can actually give you feedback. But again, of course, this is very limited because of the number of questions that you can collect. I mean, you can ask, and the data that you can collect through this. So for the large parties that most of the routine, household surveys, that has been affected. Next slide. So we've also seen that it's important one of the other things that we've seen is that rapid assessment surveys have been very useful. Again, most of these have been done through mobile phones. But then we have instances like the study I mentioned in the World Bank, where they are collecting data every 2 months, and they're creating a panel to try and track the effects of COVID. But again, I just want to highlight that this is building on an existing data set where the methodology was very precise in terms of making sure that the sample was representative. And the questions, now that you're drawing a subsample from that, it also helps to improve, to build on the question, so that you're not necessarily collecting information that you do not require, but you're actually building on that particular data set, again, just to make sure that the validity, the external validity of the analysis and the findings from that is something that can actually be generalized and can actually be used to inform decisions. So the next slide. Okay, so I think, that was my last slide. And I think what we want to, again, emphasize is that one of the key lessons we learned, for example, from the discussion forum that we had, is that some of these methodologies are unique, and but the sharing of experiences is like what the World Bank is doing. We realize that is doing this with a number of countries using the LSMS data, and this is actually important to not just track what is happening, but also to share the experiences with other evaluators and to other institutions and individuals working in this space to try and see how best we can improve the data. And one thing I would just wanted to highlight as I close is that even as we are collecting data, for example, using mobile phones, we've not relaxed the quality assurance that we usually undertake at the institute. So we still have somebody checking that data and checking routinely as it's being uploaded. And the other measures that we use to ensure that the data is quality, including triangulation of that data, those are still happening. So the only thing that is, we are actually really constrained on now is that we have to make sure that because of the short window you have with a respondent, the data has to be very, very precise. And you have to make sure that all the variables are going to be used in terms of informing the kind of analysis that you want to do. And we do hope that as soon as we have clear guidelines in terms of whether we can still, whether it's now safe to go out, or whether we can put some measures to allow us to send teams to the field, then that we can now use that to kind of fill in the gaps from the data that we are not able to collect. So I think I want to stop here and give the mic back to Renata.
Thank you very much, Tim, for setting the stages with such a rich presentation of options, and especially also for highlighting the importance of data for evidence-based policy making, also that you also mentioned at the beginning. Before we hand over to the other panelists, I'd like to also just invite our participants to share what, in their experience, what is the most important factor affecting data quality from your point of view? We heard many challenges from Tim and also solutions. We'll hear also from the other panelists. But if you could let us know what is the most important factor, one choice in this case. And I'll give you just a few seconds and then ask Amy to display results. Amy, perhaps you can display results. Yes. So the most important factor seems to be capacity of data enumerators in the field level. This was also mentioned, and yes, followed by capacity of staff to analyze and interpret data and resources. Some of the issues that go also beyond the COVID situation today. But let's go on with our next, with our panel discussion. So I'll like to go to invite Armand. So to share his experience in what are the main challenges that they have faced at the Ministry of Agriculture in Cameroon, the COVID pandemic, in collecting and analyzing data for agriculture, and if he can share with us also some of the solutions he sees or they are thinking about. So over to you, Armand. Thanks.
Thank you, Renata. Thank you to all. Good day to everybody, depending on where you are joining us. I'm very glad to share a challenge we face in collecting data in this e-panel data. And I thank the EvalForward. I thank AVANTI to give us the opportunity to share our experience. Then to know the challenge we have in the agriculture sector in Cameroon, we have to remind that the importance of agricultural sector in Cameroon. The primary sector is the engine of the national economy, contributing to up to 45% of GDP since 2009, and employs more than half of the active population. Then we observe that it's the leading supplier of forest exchange with almost 55% of total export. Then the rural sector is the privileged platform for revival of the growth and the reduction of poverty in Cameroon. And to see the importance of the agriculture, the services and the benefit are the most scattered on the national territory, and then collect and process a significant flow of data such as production, yield, climate, pest that we have to cover. Next slide, please. Who use the data we have? The main user of agricultural statistics in Cameroon, we have political decision makers, public and para-public administration. So that are to design policy or to correct policy. We have international institutions, including multilateral development partner, so that they can focus their action on bilateral cooperation, so that they can focus their action on main issues. We also have academics and researchers. Private sector investor need also statistics so that they can size opportunities in that the sector gives. You have citizen, producer, and population so that they can make their decision every day on the way things are going on in this sector. The challenge encounter, we have many challenges then. If you can go forward. The challenge encounter in Cameroon, we have the security environment. Here, the Cameroon is facing since 2015 the insecurity in more than 4 regions of the country. Social unrest in the northwest and southwest, and the fight against terrorism in the northwest, in the north and far north of the country. That hamper or delay data collection and transmission at the root level. You have the deficit in the production of agricultural statistics, because we observe that in collection of data collection operation, there is still a lack of information on aspects such as land availability, operating methods of rural sector program and project, incentive for agricultural product, routes technique by agroecological zone, the regulation on import or export. All these things, land procedure are the lowest level. So we don't always have statistics on this issue. You have data irregularities. The main dissemination method for agricultural statistics are published randomly. So this can span several years to have this discrepancy. This leads to uncertainty in projection. So we still have our year, the last edition of the national census have not been carried out since 1984. You can see inconsistency and another challenge that we encounter in collecting data: inconsistency and unreliability of data. This means that we can observe a divergence of information depending on the source. You can have sometimes data on cash crop, cocoa, coffee. The level are different between the estimate of the Ministry of Agriculture and those sometimes of the Ministry of Trade. This can bring to contradiction sometimes, and we cannot know to whom, to which administration we have to rely to get the good data. We have difficulty assessing information. We have, at the end, difficulty assessing information and lack of archive. This is still unknown on Nigeria that people don't have access on. Challenge we also have is this lack of archive. Then now the strategy and suggestion that we have to overcome all this. We have support from certain development partners. The main users of the data often participate technically in the production. That's the case for FAO, World Food Program, UNICEF in particular. When they have a specific mission, they carry out the proper basic survey so that they can have an indication on what they have to do. But in the country, in the same vein of development partners, we have a support from IFAD, a result-based management initiative called AVANTI. Energy scan was done, an action plan is available now in Cameroon. We are trying to implement it. Right now, we still have to complete the preparation of the General Census of Agriculture and Livestock. That is ongoing. In short-term data, what we do is that we send harmonized data collection template to people who are on the field so that they can fulfill it. We build capacity of the staff in charge of data collection. We have call survey. And then at the end, to get good data, we have triangulation of data so that we can confront many sources, so that we can. That's how we deal with some challenge that we face. And I think I want to thank you. If there are other questions, I'm ready to answer so that we can more get the experience Cameroon had in the challenge that we for collecting data. Thank you to everybody, and I'm available for more exchange at the end of the presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Armand, for sharing the experience from Cameroon. And now I'd like to hand over to Joas Tugizimana from Rwanda to share the experience, the challenges, and the possible solutions for data collection and analysis in Rwanda. Over to you, Joas. Thanks. Also, I'd like to remind participants that you can use the Q&A box to share any question you might have for the panelists today, and we'll address them later after the presentations. Thanks. Over to you, Joas.
Yes. Thank you very much, Nata. First of all, I wanted to greet you all. Hi. In Rwanda, agriculture sector is very important because really it contributes more in an economic transformation, and the share of GDP is estimated to 24%, and it employs around 56% of the working population. Concerning the data collection in agriculture sector, as you see on the presentation, I wanted first of all to focus on how the agriculture sector is structured in Rwanda. We do have the ministry at the top and the two implementing agencies, where at near population, we have a district. The way the ministry is structured, it allows also the joint planning, joint implementation, also the joint monitoring and reporting. This is an opportunity which really facilitates the obtention of agriculture sector at national level without many, let me say, problem. Next. The implementation is, of course, driven by the budget, which are provided by the ministry. And after giving the budget to the implementing agency in the district, we do have a grown solution, homegrown solution, which we call performance contract. It means each agencies in the district have to sign with the ministry to contract the performance as a commitment to implement the plan, the target, and also to report on a regular basis. This allows to have the report when we need it. The data collection, we do have a system calling Management Information System, MIS, which goes down up to the district. The district agronomists and the veterinary, they fill the report on a monthly basis, and immediately we get it at the national level because it is a system which is web-based. We do have also other platform, like a proper monitoring system, which help to analyze the satellite image to know exactly how the vegetation is, which ensure to know without going to the field the coverage about the land planted and the status of crops planted. Next. During this COVID-19, in Rwanda, there are some sectors which stopped, but the agriculture is still working, it is going on. It means the agriculture staff is working regular, of course, in respect of the COVID preventive measures. The farmers are continuing cultivating. The technical staff are continuing extension in respect of social distancing. Farmers getting fertilizer and seed. I may say that the agriculture activities are not stopped. This allows to have, of course, the data needed in agriculture, and also to continue maintaining food security and production across different crop value chain. In addition to that, we do have the National Institute of Statistics for Rwanda, which have in the mandate to collect data. They still also working. The seasonal agriculture survey going on, and the way we do have the lockdown in specific area, we use the telephone, the mobile phone, to call and to ask some question. But many of the country, many regions of the area of the country are open. Donc the traveling is possible, so the survey are also possible. One the constraint we do have actually due to COVID-19 is limited the field visit because there is some area which are in lockdown, and another is the data we receive. We do not have the way of cross-check the data accuracy to know exactly if the data filled in the system are accurate. We don't know how have this way of traveling in different areas. Another issue is the budget constraint. As we know, we have a recovery plan due to COVID. There are some activities which have been prioritized due to budget we have in the country. Next. The data collection of agriculture, it is very important. This is the reason why the Ministry of Agriculture has put more focus on sector digitalization. This we have on this screen is the starting point, but the government still continue to see how upgrading or scaling up those platforms so that we can minimize the way of struggling, looking for data frequently. The one we have as a master system is MIS, Management Information System. It is a web-based system where on a quarterly basis, we collect data about agriculture and about also animal-related activities. You can use computer or you can also use Android phone. It means all agriculture staff from a ministry, from implementing agencies, up to the district level, they have been trained. They have this Android application. So it means if there is, for example, an amount of fertilizer distributed, is immediately put the data in the phone and we get it at the national level. What we need as a scaling up, it is now to work with farmers, to move from agriculture staff to farmer. If a farmer have gained something like seed, immediately fill in the phone, then we get the data at the national level. So this helps us to have the aggregation in data from down to national level. Another is a crop monitoring system. This is the system which also we use to know the greeniness, how the vegetation is, and it informs the planting progress and also the status of a crop at a different area of the country. We have another called Smart Nkunganire. This Nkunganire is our language, but if you try to put in English, I can call it Smart Insurance System. It is a mobile phone application that helps us to record the cattle. It is an application for seed, for seed and input. The farmers use the Smart Nkunganire system to order a quantity of fertilizer need. Then after plantation, he also put the number of fertilizer used, and we get immediately at the country level the total quantity of fertilizer used and the total quantity of seed used without asking those technical stuff down. Another is the e-market platform. It helps to know exactly or to monitor the price of different commodity. The farmers also use the mobile phone. You can have the number where you can call, then you get a price of banana, beans for any market in Rwanda. Another is livestock database management system. This is to help to monitor the national insurance scheme. In Rwanda, we have insurance scheme where the farmers having a crop or having a cattle, they get insurance, and one day if a cow die or if a crop production is damaged by disaster, so they are paid back. Another platform is the agricultural information system. This is to help the country to monitor the available land for investment. Those are the system in place, but the policy is now to scaling up to be more efficient for agriculture data collection and the monitoring and the reporting. Another solution is to engage a ministry stakeholder to support the M&A activities, and of course to look for another software which can support the existing one. As I said before, I told you that we have a budget constraint in monitoring, so we are thinking how we can organize a consultative meeting for stakeholder so that we can support those activities related to monitoring and evaluation. I think this is what I have prepared for you. Thank you. If there is a question, you are welcome. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Joas, also for sharing with us the experience from Rwanda. We had planned also for Tim now to share a bit more on Kenya again. I don't know if you want to add anything to your presentation, because Tim, otherwise we can, I see that there are already a couple of questions in the question box, so perhaps we could move directly to the questions if you agree, Tim.
Yes.
Okay. So I'll hand over to Kai for handling the question and answer.
Thank you very much. Before we go to the question that you raised, I want to take advantage of my pole position and ask a question myself. I would like to address Joas, and because I mean, Tim was clear about the necessity to exchange data with a broad range of data providers, if you want, to exchange information. So either for the ministry to get information on other topics they cannot monitor themselves, but it's important for them, and the other way around, that you provide information and data to other sectors that are affected by agriculture. So my question would be, what is the experience in Rwanda? How do you do that, this exchange with different data providers? First, and the other one, how was this collaboration, if this exists, affected by the COVID-19 situation?
Thank you very much for the question. In terms of collaboration with other stakeholders, in terms of data collection, we have in our ministry the joint secretary review meeting. Those are the very big meeting, the one start at the beginning to see how to evaluate the backward. It is like a backward looking, and another comes after to think about the plan for the coming fiscal year. Those meetings, there are a structure where we do have the agriculture sector working group, where all stakeholders belong to any group. So we have those meetings, but the agriculture sector working group normally held every quarter. So this is how we exchange the data, and also this is how also if there is some more intervention needed, each stakeholder can support the sector. This is how we work. In addition to that, we do have also joint performance contract. Joint performance contract, it is between the ministries and also the institution or public institution of the government. For example, the Ministry of Agriculture, it is in the class of economic cluster. In the economic cluster, we do have Ministry of Agriculture, we have a Ministry of Infrastructure, we have a Ministry of Local Government, we have a Ministry of Trade and Commerce. Those institutions, we also have a meeting on a quarterly basis. We sit together We assess how the economic sector is going on. We evaluated the challenge, and we see also where to enforce. And from those meetings, it is where we take, we collect the data needed for planning purposes or for decision making. Yeah. In terms of this COVID situation, we have a specific program or a specific task force where also deal with the consequence of COVID-19. We do have a task force in economic sector. We have also another task force which is dealing with the challenge related to social protection. It means in agriculture, we are one of the member of economic task force, where we sit together also to plan how are we going to deal with the consequence of COVID-19. How are we going to plan, to think about the recovery plan? It means the data required in those plans, we share those data during that kind of meeting. So it means we collaborate together to plan, and also to look for required data for better planning and for better dealing with the challenge due to COVID-19. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Joas. Then let's go to the questions you have posed. We have 3 by now. I go from the top to down. Here's from Trond Norheim. The COVID-19 situation is changing rapidly. So would you be able to define some concrete recommendations on data collection to the countries that are on an early stage in the pandemic, based on the lessons learned from the countries that are further in the virus process? Is there any lessons learned recommendation you could already share?
For Rwanda?
Or for Cameroon?
Okay.
I don't know. Who wants to answer, Armand? Tim, you're muted.
Yeah. Okay, so let me give it a shot. I think one of the things that we've learned ourselves is that, of course, when you have very concrete data systems, it actually helps. In our case, our enumerators we've already done phone interviews before. We've done phone surveys. We did our first phone survey in 2014, and mainly we just use this for kind of collecting supplementary information. So our enumerators already trained on that, and then we maintain a pool of enumerators, so retraining is not a big issue. What we also learned was that when we wanted now to undertake this, when you are collecting data on respondents that you already talked to before, it is much easier because you've already gained trust. You've already interviewed them before, and going back to ask them questions actually helps. If you're going to start a phone survey on people you've never talked to, right now people are a bit skeptical on how you got their phone information. And so the key thing is that for countries that are at an early stage, are trying to set up such kind of mechanisms, especially making sure that you train enumerators and making sure that if you have a sample frame that you want to follow, you kind of make contacts now, so that when you're calling them in the future, you've already broken that ice. That will really help you a lot. And then, of course, the other key thing is that you really have to relook at the kind of questions that you want to ask. If you make a phone survey very long, there's a very huge possibility that as the more the call takes, the also respondents, you can imagine holding your phone for 30 minutes. So they will want to dismiss you quickly so that they can also, get to other things. It's very different from when you're having a one-on-one interaction. And then the last consideration you also need to make is that the frequency of going back to the same respondents. If you want to collect like a high frequency panel, then you have to also be mindful that respondents can also get fatigued very easily. So that that should be a consideration that you'll take because nobody has a clue how long a lockdown prediction, how long a lockdown will be in place. And we've seen also in some cases that countries reopen then close. So that has, you have to try and think a bit in the long term. Thank you. Kai?
Hi, I think you're muted.
Kai, you're still muted, I think.
Yeah, sorry, I left the screen. I didn't find the button. Sorry for that. Yeah, I just wanted to go further in the question because there are two questions from Basirou from Senegal that follows up on this. He asked about how to ensure the data quality, the perfect data quality, and if there could be like a process in order to consolidate an instructive document. So some guidelines to take into consideration for M&E data quality under COVID situation, I guess. Would you follow up on this, Tim, as well?
I can just think, I think you can hear me now. So one of the other things that I noticed is that most of the providers are happy to support you. In our case, the software that we use for data collection, has in the website. So this is Survey CTO has a good literature that supports people. They guide on how to ensure that you can ensure the quality of data. This includes the checks that you can inbuilt in the tool, and then. And again, as I mentioned earlier, the other data quality assurance protocol should not be replaced just because you're doing a telephone interview. So we have to kind of see how to integrate this within the questionnaire. But then what I would quickly point out is that right now, especially over the last 3 months, there's been a lot of material on, even if you just did a simple Google search, you can find a lot of material coming in from different authors. But then the best one, of course, would be if you're going to use software-based data collection tool, then the provider would actually tell you what is possible within that particular platform. And then those who are using open source software, there's also a lot of sharing of information within the communities around different software. So most of the open source software have a community where people usually just posting questions and asking for help. But then right now, people are also sharing experiences in how, based on how the challenges they're getting and how they're trying to cope with that.
Thank you, Tim. A question from Patrick Spaven. He is also involved into Avanti. He did also country scans, and he is asking a question: if the COVID-19 pandemic that is shining light on the importance of data for health also has an effect on an increase of interest in data for agriculture. Can you confirm that there is an increase of importance of data from agriculture? Maybe not at the same level, but at least can you notice that? Maybe Armand, do you have any signs in Cameroon?
Thank you, Kai. I want to thank for this question. Thank you for this question. In Cameroon, depending on COVID-19, there is a great interest in data for agriculture right now. Because of the lockdown, you have to master issues on security of food securities, so that you cannot get from a health crisis to a security food crisis. So we have to get a kind of survey of the main indicators. So the availability of food, the quantity, even the quality, due to lockdown, because if people are not working, our food will be available. That's the main point that we have to in Cameroon we have to face right now. And then after, we have to make a survey to know those who were affected by the measure taken to mitigate the COVID-19. Such are the main. So you see that due to those two issues of data collection and the agriculture's health collection, issues and agricultural issues are very linked. So I can say that right now we have an interest, a big interest in agriculture data. That's how I can say it.
Thank you, Armand. Renata, shall we take up another question?
I think I know, yes, I see that there are a couple of more questions, but our time is finished now. I don't know if people want to stay a few minutes longer, otherwise we can follow up via email with participants and try to respond to those questions that are remained unanswered. Because I think people are, yes, okay. So I think we should close now and we'll follow up. As I said, we will share the presentations and we'll go back to the questions that have remained unanswered and respond with the help of our panelists and our experts from Avanti. So I want to thank you all for joining this session today. We have also a last feedback poll that Emmy will showcase, which we show on screen now. So if you take a few seconds to give us feedback through this poll, and we'll share it also a link when we'll share with you the recording and the presentation that were made today. I want
feedback form. Sorry, the feedback form will appear when people close their window. So as you leave, the feedback form will appear rather than appearing like the previous polls.
Okay, thanks, Emmy, for clarifying this. Thank you all for joining us today. Thank you for being with us, and thank you especially to our panelists for sharing their experience in this very important topic. First-hand experience from Ministries of Agriculture. Please register to EvalForward and to sign up to the Avanti newsletter to keep in touch with us and with our next initiatives in this field. And don't hesitate to get in touch with us. Thank you all, and bye-bye. See you next time.